Okay, I see Dan is on. Then the party can get started probably.
Yep. Sorry, folks. I'm on limited internet. Seems like the cable company is insistent on trying to prevent me from doing anything. I guess maybe because I didn't watch enough of the FIFA matches.
Shame on
There
you,
you
Dan. You
go.
didn't watch the FIFA matches?
Cool. Well, let's get started. So folks can see my screen. And yeah, welcome everybody to Triple C Technical Advisory Council meeting, July 9th. Can you believe it's already July? Cannot believe it. So let's get started. So as hopefully most of you know, unless you're new here, Triple C or Confidential Computing Consortium is a community focused on protecting and securing data in use and accelerating the adoption of this technology. And yeah, everyone is welcome to participate, not only the members, but anyone from the public as well. And of course, we do encourage you to join as a member. We're part of the Linux Foundation, so here is the antitrust policy notice from Linux Foundation folks. And our agenda today, hopefully everyone saw, I emailed it to the mail list a couple days ago. So yeah, first we'll do the roll call. We'll see if there are any loose ends on old business, the last meeting. It's been a while ago because of the US holidays. Any announcements? Have some new business. The Confidential Computing Summit 2026 takeaways, kind of a brief opportunity for folks to comment. Anyone can comment. Then the update from Project Verizon. Do we have Yogesh on the line already, or maybe
Yes.
joining later?
Can you hear me?
Yes, fantastic. Loud and clear.
Yeah, thank
Perfect.
you.
We appreciate you joining. Then last time we adopted Blueprint C, but still some work needs to be done, I guess, on Blueprints A and B. So we'll take time to work on that as a community. Update on TAC white paper and our future business and next meeting, new rotating chair. Okay, let's do the roll call. Do we have somebody from AMD? No. From Google, it's me, Renee Kolga. Huawei, Wu?
Nope.
No. Okay. Intel, I heard Simon.
Different Simon, I think. Scott
Oh,
sent me a note yesterday that he has personal conflict today, so he won't be
okay.
on today, but appreciate getting the heads up.
Meta, Ahmed? No.
Think we were given a second name from Meta a couple weeks ago, and we
Yeah,
need to get
let's get it
the
updated.
roll call updated to include that individual. If that person is on, feel free to speak up. Don't recall the name off the top of my head.
Now is your chance to get on the roster for Meta if you speak up.
Okay. Microsoft, the right Simon. It's on. NVIDIA, multiple representatives. Great. TikTok, you have Mingshen? No. Shielded Technologies, Bob? No. Light attendance today. And Volcano Engine? No. Okay, so we don't have a quorum, right? We have Google, Microsoft, NVIDIA. So 3 so far, correct? Yep. Dan, do we have anything? I don't think we need to vote on anything today, right?
I don't think so.
Okay, so that's okay. Maybe some of these folks join later on. Okay, anyone new who wants to introduce themselves? Obviously, completely optional.
Hi. Hi, everyone. I am Gauthier Jolly. I work for Canonical with Isla, who is present, I think, today. And I work in the image building team for Ubuntu. So Ubuntu image building for all the public clouds. So, yep, that's what we do. And we've been involved with CC for a long time since we deployed images on Microsoft at the very beginning for TPM backed FDE on top of confidential computing technologies. Yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Welcome.
Yeah, great to have
Thanks
you
for
on.
joining.
Thank you.
I think last time I was on a call, I said hello, but I'll just do it again. My name is Kevin Jones. I'm the founder of an AI startup where we use confidential compute, Google Cloud confidential compute for accessing secrets from an HSM module and also doing like attestations and proofs for agentic workflows.
And which company?
It's called One Claw, the number one claw.
Awesome. Thank you for joining.
Yeah, great to have you on. Thanks, Kevin.
Anyone else?
Hey, Kevin,
Yeah.
if you don't mind just giving us like a 2-sentence statement of the mission statement for your company. You said you retrieve keys from an HSM and you store them in a trusted execution environment, presumably because you get better crypto operation throughput.
Yeah, exactly. So it's mainly for trustless, zero trust kind of environments for agents. So the concept is we basically provide a layer. Sorry, my son just randomly came in my office.
He's welcome.
Provide,
He's welcome to join the
yeah,
confidential computing
yeah,
consortium as well.
he's in the CCC now. So we basically, we provide this kind of like zero trust architecture just for like agents with like role-based access and then guardrails. So you can imagine you want to give an agent an API key that has scoped access to use whatever secret it is. It could be an API key. It could be a crypto wallet with some set of guardrails. So what we do is we enforce like transaction limits, what chains can be used for like blockchains, where the recipient of the actual transaction is, what kind of smart contracts can be called. And then we're looking to add more support around like API keys and maybe backend services. So you could imagine maybe you want to restrict usage of the key at a certain time, right? Only within certain hours or certain many times per day. So it's all around like guardrails and just kind of keeping the secrets from leaving physical encrypted hardware.
Thanks for that. Love hearing these use cases. I mean, we're always looking for real world examples of the tech. So thank you for that.
Yeah, of course. Anytime, happy to hop on a call if anyone wants to go and do deeper. Just let me know.
Great. Anyone else? Okay.
So I have a follow-up question on that. So do you have complete specifications of your attestation protocol? Like, can you share, and is your implementation of that attestation protocol like open source available? Can one verify that, or can one check that?
We're actually working on the attestation stuff now. It's not there yet. We have some predefined stuff. We're using EAS, which is the Ethereum attestation service, because all agentic accounts come with like a Ethereum signing key. So we are kind of experimenting with that, but I'm also interested to learn if there's a existing framework that I could use rather than writing something from scratch. I think I'm using Google Cloud, so it's all AMD SEVs. So yeah, if anyone has any recommendations there, I'd love to hear what you guys think would be best.
Let's put it in chat if there are any guidance for Kevin. Yeah. Cool. Okay, so old business. Anything, Dan, we need to follow up on here? We had a great update from Radhika. Got the blueprint C, and I know it's in design. Should be almost ready. Anything else? Great talk from AMD on portable machine images.
Yeah, I think that covers it. It's just always a good reminder of what we talked about last time, especially since we had the gap with the CC Summit.
That's right. That's right. And as a reminder for the new folks, all the recordings are available on our YouTube channel, so you can always go back and see the discussion. Okay. From the announcements, I added this one. I think we briefly discussed it in one of the prior meetings, but NIST's IR 8320E initial public draft was open for comment for the past, I think, month and a half or two, and the deadline is fast approaching. So I don't think we did the CCC kind of consolidated feedback on this NIST paper, but all participants are obviously encouraged to provide their feedback. Anyone participated? I know we were putting together something from the Google Cloud side. Okay, just FYI, folks, a couple days left. Okay, CCC Summit takeaways. So obviously, let's not consume the whole meeting in that, but I'll take a couple of minutes and provide your feedback or what you observed. You know, some participants here were there in person, which was fantastic. Don't all rush in together. So I can start and give just super brief observations from my side. Obviously, agentic AI and how does confidential computing apply and does not apply to that topic is unsurprisingly a big discussion. I think we are lacking some guidance there. So I actually, following Dan's advice, submitted an issue or suggestion for in our GitHub to provide some clarity from the CCC standpoint. You know, Ming Shan from TikTok already commented on that briefly. So that's one. Two, sovereign AI. Of course, you know, you ask 10 people what sovereign AI means to them, and you'll get 10 different answers. But should there be a confidential computing story for sovereign AI? A big topic as well. And then finally, it was great to see Apple present at the Confidential Computing Summit. That's apparently a very rare thing when they present at non-Apple events. And so they presented about Apple PCC, how it uses confidential computing, and how they now extended Apple PCC from their own data center to Google Cloud as well. But just overall highlighting the usage of confidential computing by Apple, it's obviously a pretty big deal. We had that happen from of course, Meta with WhatsApp, and maybe Signal in the past, but this was great. So that's my very quick overview.
I'll jump in really quick and just say from the, egotistical confidential computing consortium point of view, I thought it was great that we got a chance to sit together in a room, some of us, while we were there in San Francisco, and I'd forgotten how nice it is to actually sit in a room together and have a discussion. I would like to propose, and I know it's a year in advance, but I would like to propose that maybe we schedule a time to sit together and not be on video and not be, attending a virtual meeting at the same time. I thought that was great too. I'm not suggesting we eliminate that. I'm saying we add on sort of like a birds of a feather session or something like that as part of the conference. And I'd like, to to ask the Linux Foundation for guidance on how I can, now that they're taking over the meeting, how I can like maybe set up a formal time for people to sit together as CCC members and discuss issues. Other than
Yeah,
that, that was the only thing I felt like was missing. Other than that, I thought the conference did a great job of having I think there was some discussion of last year's CC Summit as being maybe focused excessively on vendors and less on the technology itself. I didn't feel like that was the case at all during this summit. It felt like there was great distribution of topics, great distribution of speakers, great distribution of floor space. So I was very happy about that. I didn't feel like there was any criticism there at all.
Yeah, I agree on all points there. It's always great to get to meet people in person that you only ever talk to on Zoom. And it would be great to get some sort of face-to-face TAC meeting going, and it could be at the summit or there's other conferences make our way to. If we can get a face-to-face session tacked on one of them, that would also be great.
Any other trends or observations? Yeah, thanks, Alec. Thanks, Dan.
I think one theme that came through to me was more complementary security technologies being part of real-world solutions. And I got that from I think Apple and Google and Meta's keynotes that we all know that any individual security technology is just a piece of providing security. And so I think maybe as we look at the redraft for the TAC white paper, we might want to think about whether some of those complementary security technologies ought to be mentioned there.
Dan, you mean there is no silver bullets in cybersecurity? What?
I didn't say that. I do have a magic rock, though, that you can contact me. I'll sell.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, cover it. Anyone else? Manu, Fritz?
I was not clear, so this is not a takeaway, and more an open question. So, should we maybe start thinking again already about the next year's summit? So, what is currently the situation? Was the summit now partially organized by the CCC, or was it still private? I'm sorry, I'm very uneducated here. But anyway, of the answer to that, I'm wondering if for next year it would not be useful to account for the fact that there are regularly three sets of people at the CC Summit, right? It's kind of high-level folks, it's software folks, and then it's also developers. And so if we are growing in community and want to follow the true Linux Foundation spirit, maybe we should start thinking about having also partially true to the spirit developer style, not events, but like meetings in and around, or structure it somehow better to grow the community, not just for folks like us who tend to be high level, but maybe also for the people implementing it and having it more like less like a marketing expo and also more in degrees as a developer thing. But of course that like means talking in advance and discussing this. But I don't know if CCC is even committed to doing this next year again, or if it's still a privately owned thing.
Yeah, it's something we can certainly do. I think the way this happens every year is that a couple months before the conference, people realize that the conference is coming, and then it's almost too late to get things organized. So maybe what we could do is have a topic on our long-term schedule. So like January or February, we set up a joint meeting with the outreach committee because they normally get involved in the conference agenda. That might be a way to get ahead of it and actually influence things.
It's a great idea. And
Yeah.
I'll jump in, Fritz, and say I don't know if you saw that there was a big announcement there that Opaque is no longer going to be running or sponsoring the CC Summit. Instead, it will be run entirely by the Linux Foundation. So
Cool.
that kind of gives us, I think, a little bit more, a full foundation to give us support for organizations. So I think now we're not just putting it on, um, each other to make suggestions. So I recommend these kinds of suggestions. Maybe we have a meeting agenda for next week to kind of assemble them. And I'll take a few notes here and then go to Michelle with a little bit of a written proposal and a schedule. I think what Dan just said about the outreach committee is a great idea too. So I'll try and capture some of that in real time.
Awesome. Yeah. Again, sorry, I haven't followed this at all because I booked my vacations this year before CC Summit dates were out, so I didn't end up attending. I had a great week, but not with you guys. So yeah, so I think it would be awesome because in the end, at least how I saw the last years, is that it's a very interesting community, but it's always this mix of marketing-y talks. Look what cool things we're doing. Mixed in with technical, interesting talks of, look, these are the details of what we're doing. And then we also have all these developers in the mix. So accounting for this, I think, could, I don't know, be a crazy mix of confidential computing talks where two people might not have the same experience across the same summit. And I think that could be cool. So let's maybe indeed have these discussions and see what would make sense, especially now that we in quotation marks can own it or control it better. Would be nice.
Good ideas.
You said, hey, Fritz, I'm taking notes. You said I got high level folks, then developers, and what was the third group?
I'm a technical, coming from technical research side, so I call it marketing or marketing talks. Like the high level vision of executives, how they see the technology going. And I think this is interesting to see, but it's maybe not what's coming from Linux Foundation side that the developer might care about, right? So I think there's these three levels, like the marketing, the technical talks, and kind of developer level, hey, what API do we have in this new thing, right? Or how should we develop this kata container specific feature, right? I think we have the community for all three, and at least seeing if there is interest for each of the communities to get their own place might be worth a discussion, even if we end up seeing, look, developers wouldn't come and we don't need to give them their own room or their own talks, right? There's also things like FOSDEM, but that's more EU-centric and mostly just developers. And so I think it makes sense to have a discussion of where do which people have their place and did they so far not have their place at the CC Summit?
Thanks for the feedback. And by the way, I also put the link to the recordings in the chat, so you can watch all the recordings there captured so far in these giant streams. So you'll have to kind of rewind and find the talk you're interested in, but all available. So thanks to the organizers for actually capturing all the recordings, which was fantastic. Okay, let's move on. Sama,
I see.
you have your hand up.
Yeah, I want to add 2 cents here. So I had an accepted talk at the summit. Unfortunately, I didn't get the visa. So Jens kindly presented it on behalf of me. I had a poster there. So I attended online. I was watching the talks online. I don't know what happened in like other things which were, for instance, like the posters. There was nothing online for that. Anyway, my kind of takeaway is very much aligned with what Fritz was saying. There was a high percentage of talks which were marketing based and just promoting their company perspectives and all that. Now that It's completely with Linux Foundation. I think we should really try to reduce that proportion and do more, or at least, at the very least, a little bit more than what this summit has been. They had a nice part for research, but that always went over to the posters, and that didn't get any attention at all. So I would say that part needs to be given more attention, that what are the real problems with confidential computing that the community actually needs to solve to move this field forward, rather than just saying that, hey, look at this, Microsoft has developed this, look, Google has developed this, look, Intel has developed this, look, AMD has developed this, ARM has developed this, and so on. Like this really mindset needs to be changed when we take over from the next year. That would be my suggestion.
Good feedback. And we did see your poster in the poster session, Osama, so thank you. And good point. But at the same time, we shouldn't completely forget about folks who are new to the confidential computing. I met at least one person who had no idea what the confidential computing was, and I was talking in the hallway with them. So there's always some balance, right? But I think point taken.
Sure. Just to very quickly clarify, my point was to raise that percentage
Yep.
rather than just eliminate that completely. So a little bit of introduction is fine, little bit of marketing is fine, but not too much. That's currently it stands a lot of percentage of marketing. That's my main point. Thanks.
Got it. Thank you. Okay, let's move on. Good stuff. Okay, new business update from Yogesh, and then we'll talk about blueprints and a TAC white paper.
So,
Yogesh?
yeah, I'm there. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Let me share my screen and then we can start talking some stuff.
Appreciate you joining.
Yeah. So, hello and welcome. Let me introduce myself because I just noticed that there are few members, colleagues who are first-time joiners here. So I'm Yogesh Deshpande. I'm principal engineer at ARM in Cambridge, United Kingdom, and I'm one of the active contributors to the open source project Verizon. And mostly my time is half spent on standards as well as equivalent implementation in project Verizon. So this is the brief background about my work. But I would like to highlight that for the new joiners, especially Project Verizon provides open source. It's a CCC backed project which provides open source implementation of tools required to build attestation verification services. So it encompasses all the tools, libraries, or effectively kind of reference deployments which assist any kind of TEE, which especially more relevant here is confidential computing TEEs to do the verification of such kind of a TEEs attestation. Of course, encompasses workload attestation as well, and the verification tooling is provided by Project Verizon. So today I am going to present what has happened with the project in last 12 months, and then feel free to interrupt me if there are any questions. I'm happy to kind of be interrupted in the middle. So I start the presentation now. So from the last year, in terms of governance and stuff, there is no change from last year. The project is still in the incubation stage. The budgets, we have not consumed any travel budget since January 2026, where the new cycle starts. And for deployments and stuff as well, there is no budget used as of today. And we believe as of now, the sandbox level is still appropriate because the project is still evolving. It's still been actively under development. And recently we got funding from CCC to hire a part-time project management manager role, which would look at the how the governance is operated, how we are operating things, what practices we are following. And of course, then it will evaluate other projects and see whether the practices we are doing is on the right track, and is there a scope for moving it to the next maturity level based on what we have achieved so far. Is there any delta before we accomplish that, moving to the next phase of the project, or we are at the right stage, basically. In addition to that, he would provide the technical issue tracking guidance, and of course, the guy is very technically sound, so he's very well, very helpful in providing us some uh, technical assistance in our team as well. So that was good hiring just happened, and he just joined like from this week itself. So he attends our regular Verizon meetings, which happens 4 p.m. UK time. Lastly, I just want to highlight that we have good governance documents, especially we had the security reporting guidance in place in Verizon, and that was very effectively put to use because two minor security report incidences were reported on Project Verizon from outside community members who were just looking at the projects or possibly doing some evaluation. And then they just detected, hey, these are two security reports and security issues, and they reported it to the right protocol, and then the team managed to fix them on time. So it seems that the process we put in place seems to be working. Okay, over the last 1 year, these are some of the key accomplishments put in a short summary. Of course, we can get a lot into detail, but the key development. Sorry, Usama, you have a question?
Yeah, hello Yogesh. So very quickly on last slide, you had about the security vulnerabilities. Like, can you say maybe in a couple of minutes, very quickly, what's your kind of standard procedure? And you said you effectively solved it within reasonable time or something like that. What is your like reasonable time, and what was exactly that time period?
What I mean is that reported incidents was kind of adequately dealt with. A response was generated acknowledging that there is a small kind of minor security thing, and yeah, and we put some mitigation in place where we say that a fix will be provided by so and so date. That's the kind of thing. It is like not like a, don't treat it like a CVE kind of thing, but just a more like a general security incidents reporting mechanisms, what we have in place. Yeah.
Okay, but you didn't really answer my question, which was that how much time it took you to solve that problem.
About around 3 to 5 working days. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Okay, so moving on, in last 12 months, Fujitsu research team has actively participated, now is an active contributor to the project. What it means is that they are kind of utilizing our open source work in Verizon, and not only they are utilizing it in their research project, but at the same time they are actively contributing to the new feature development, coming up with ideas, coming up with new requirements, explaining the requirements, and then creating GitHub pull requests to add feature enhancements to the project, which is a great thing. Um, Fujitsu has a confidential computing use case, and they are working on confidential computing solutions, and it's good to have them. And the community is gradually growing in that aspect. When we started the project like 5 years back, we had evaluated Rust as the possible way of implementation, but at that time, the Rust ecosystem was a bit less mature, or it was at a very initial stages. And we felt that Golang is an excellent language for, especially when you're deploying services, and especially attestation verification most likely could be a service. So we started with Golang. But as the time progressed, the Rust ecosystem matured, and the client libraries, which are mostly on the attester side, would be very well comfortably implemented in Rust. So, and the community also has growing interest in Rust. So, there has been a natural growth of Rust repositories in the Verizon organization. And in last 12 months, we have added 5 new Rust repositories to the project. And so now we maintain it's not that Golang is decreasing in priorities. By certainly no means we are saying that. We are doing equal priority and equal development in both Golang and Rust libraries. So that's a new addition rather than deletion of any sort. So which is a good to know that we have more repositories and we do great care in providing sync between the Golang libraries and the Rust libraries. We do our best in that. Apart from that, some major accomplishment is that the version CCA CoServe demonstration is fully functional. CoServe is a concise selector for reference values and endorsements. It's an endorsement provider service, which basically allows the verifiers to fetch endorsements from known distribution services operated by certain vendors. So it's a you can spin off Verizon in a co-serve mode where it can act as a endorsement distribution service as well. So based on certain configuration, you can act it as a attestation verifier, but at the same time, you can act it as a endorsement distribution service as well. So that kind of an end-to-end demo is fully functional now. And it was and thanks to Linaro, who has helped us deploying and deploying a working solution of CoServe as an endpoint, and that is fully operational and been tested internally for proof of concepts and stuff like that. So along with that, there is active contribution from our ARM and Oracle teams on that. So the work is going.
Yogesh, I have a question before you proceed to this ARM and Oracle point. So,
Yeah.
CoServe, I have given substantial technical feedback on this CoServe point, and there is an aggregator which is involved here, which is creating a lot of trouble from the security perspective. And I want you to precisely elaborate on what that aggregator is in terms of the RATS architecture, because that's completely wrong to say that it's fully developed or you have a working deployment of CoServe endpoint, because you are adding a new trust anchor which is nowhere written in the document that you have added a new trust anchor, and you are trying to make people believe that you have implemented it, but that is completely different from saying that, hey, there is a new entity that people now blindly have to trust, and without that trust being placed in there, the whole system breaks. And if that entity itself is vulnerable or has problems, so then even then still you are vulnerable. So I want you to really elaborate on what that aggregator thing is.
Okay, I think this is slightly off topic here, I believe, Usama, because I think what you're
then my
trying to
question
go
is,
in.
It's extremely off topic.
Yeah.
yeah,
you know,
but then why are you bringing it here as an accomplishment? That's
because
my
it's a piece of information about the project, or the progress of the project, which is of interest for this update.
right. So then don't put it in the slides, I would say. Thanks.
It's
Go
in
on.
the slides because it's factual. It's factual. It doesn't make any statement about the security presence or something like that. It is a factual piece of information. Can we move on, please?
Hey everyone, I just want to do a reminder of there is a code of conduct for all of our interactions on here. So if everyone can please be mindful of that, that would be really great. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Here, Usama, as Simon mentioned, we are here providing a progress update of what is being implemented in Project Verizon. What you're asking is a question on the draft, which is not the intention of this meeting. So I think we will discuss it offline, maybe in the RATS working group, maybe the right forum to ask these questions. Yeah. Okay. Apart from that, uh, the project regularly works with mentees. So Linux Foundation has a mentees program where they allow opportunity for college students to kind of actively contribute to Project Verizon, and mentors from the key core contributors of Project Verizon's help them. We assign certain degree of task, and they are given a fixed amount of time, like 3 months, 4 months, to work on that. And we have a regular interaction with mentees, and they complete a task to the logical conclusion. And we had a very wonderful experience with the mentees, and they learned a lot, and we had a very pleasant outcome for contribution to Verizon. So it was like a win-win situation from both sides. So I just wanted to share that good news on this forum. Yeah. And just to highlight, the last bullet is just trying to inform that whatever we work in VATS, the same is implemented in Verizon. So effectively, Verizon is a community-based open source work, fully backed, fully goes in hand in hand and becomes standards-based verifier. That's standards-based verifier. Yeah. Okay. On now, this is going a bit more technical. We're specifically working on the what changes have been done in the code base. So. Of course, we have gradually built up support for multiple attestation schemes, whether it is ARM CCA or AMD 7NP scheme. These are all confidential computing schemes from different vendors. Intel TDX is, of course, work is in progress. PSA, TPM, we have schemes which supports PSA and TPM root of trust. And Oracle has their own confidential computing flavor, which they are actively working on and contributing back to the community. Over the last 12 months, there was a significant re-architecture of the provisioning store. This was like a new store rewrite, I would say, where the facility of natively storing corims and commits. By the way, those who are new, corims and commits are the endorsement provisioning data formats to provision endorsements and reference values into a verifier. So now the Verizon has full support of natively storing corims and commits into the database. And this is a kind of a flexible architecture is in place for the provisioning side of things, where you can interact with any sensible relational database, so whether it is SQLite, Postgres, or MySQL, and any type of this kind of query languages are currently supported, and the architecture is flexible. If tomorrow you have other query language, we should be able to support that. And more importantly is now there is an improved life cycle for provisioning components, meaning one can activate the corims at later point in time, and one can deactivate the corims so that will not be used for subsequent verification. So that's something quite important because there were requirements and from different community projects to support that. So we supported that in the code base. And the RATSD, those who are new, RATSD is kind of an domain. It's like a service on the attester side where it would collect evidence or tokens from different root of trust components. Let's, for example, like on your attester, you have a confidential computing platform which provides you a CCA token and like a confidential computing token, and at the same time you have a GPU attached, so you can have a GPU attestation token. And then RATSD provides a service which allows you to kind of collect these two tokens and wrap it in a concise message wrapper and send it to the verifier. So RATSD is a library which allows you to collect evidence from different component attesters on an attestation component. So that V2 support is fully operational now in Verizon, which means you can have a signed composite attester evidence, and that can be sent using a lead attester token format to the verifier. And one major change we did on the provisioning side is Corim now supports full PKIX path validation, which means you can have X5 chain certificate chain in the header, and then you can route it all the way to the root CA. Yes, Alec, please go ahead if you have any questions.
I think you're muted, Alec.
Alec, I can't hear you.
Yeah, the pesky mute button gets me every time. I'm super excited about this RATSD composite attester evidence. Is there a RFC on that? Is there some doc? I mean, this is the first I've seen it of. I'd love to learn more.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There is a good amount of documentation I can share with you offline on how the composite attestation is formed. I will share the GitHub repo, share the documentation, and I will come to the subsequent slide on the work done on similar stuff in RATs as well. That will be covered in my next slide. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, please put in the chat if you have a chance the link. I was also interested in RADS-D when you mentioned it.
Sure.
Dan.
Yeah, Dan, please go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned so the RATS-D produces something wrapped in a CMW,
Yes.
concise message wrapper. Does the project also then have a verifier that can consume the CMW?
That's an excellent question. Again, it is answered in the next slide, but we are implementing something called multi-verifier support in Verizon, where you could have potentially from a composite attester, you could have multiple component attesters. Let's just an example I gave about a root of trust coming from a platform and like a GPU evidence coming from a GPU verifier. So we should have a mechanism to either completely verify the whole thing within one verifier, or you could have a mechanism where you delegate that to a sequence of verifiers or multiple verifiers, where a CPU verifier is verifying the CPU part of the attester and the GPU verifier is verifying the GPU part of the attester. So we have that framework. It's very much a work in progress. It's not yet complete. That's why I didn't put it in this slide. Once it is complete, hopefully by next year when I'm presenting this, it would be complete. So I hope that this answers your question.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, yes, Usama. Yes, please go ahead.
Just a quick check. If it's already answered in the next slide, then I can hold this. So in the multi-verifiers, how the two verifiers are going to cooperate with each other? How is the, let's say 1 and 2, how is the verifier 2 going to get trust with the verifier 1? Is this in the next slide or is it answerable now?
No. I think in this slide deck, I'm just providing a status update, but we have some strategies in place how to trust, how to establish trust among the verifiers itself. And yeah, again, I think I will explain you that in the RATS working group how we going to answer that when there is a trust ecosystem where there are multiple components who are responsible for attesting an attester, then how do they mutually trust each other is something of an interesting topic. And we have a side meeting in the RATS community to establish some solution on that subject. Yeah, but it is not part of this presentation because, of course, you're asking something much more on a standards level than the implementation level as of now. Yeah.
Right, thanks.
Yeah. And yes, I think I covered this already that the end-to-end demo, including Verizon as a COSA distribution service, is fully functional. And yes, I think I covered the topic of multi-verifier coordination, and this is very much a work in progress. And I did cover the mentorship part in the earlier. So yeah. Okay, now coming to the standards. So how it works in our team is that bulk of our team contributes actively in standards, and once the standards gets into a decent shape in even in the draft state, we start implementing the same equivalent stuff in Project Horizon. So you would see both the things going hand in hand. Just like an example, I've given you quoted here a few examples like Corim is a data format and information model for supplying endorsements and reference values. And a lot of team here is already familiar with that, but I just reiterate because there are some new participants, and that has been actively been worked in ITF and TCG. And we have a good Golang Corim library as well as Rust Corim library in Verizon. So and there are teams who are actually, as the new draft revision comes out, equivalent implementation is again moved up to that revision. So that is very much happening. You would be glad to know that the team's contribution has been becoming an RFCs like concise message wrapper is almost at the stage of becoming RFC now. I put the number, which is very interesting. 9999 would be the number given to this RFC. In next 6 months, you will see that number popping up. And each media types is of course, an RFC now, RFC 9782. And the co-serve and multi-verifier, which I mentioned briefly about the implementation, those were recently adopted in the ITF RATS working group. So there would be discussions on how to make them into an RFC over the period of time. I'm confident in next 12 to say 18 months, they will become RFCs. And we make sure that whatever changes we do in the drafts, that gets implemented in Project Horizon. And OCP is one of the major contributing working group in the data center scenarios. I hope everybody is here aware of Open Compute project, and they are kind of closely looking at our ITF work, especially the CORIM, and they have provide and CORIM and EAT entity attestation token for attester evidence. And they have taken some of the work we have done in CORIM and produced the OCP work on security and attestation taken up from the ITF. And now coming to the point which I think Alec asked about RADSD. So RADSD kind of produces a working solution of something which is proposed in a composite attester draft. And that draft we started working like 6 months back. But the RATS working group is queued up with so many documents. So we are really held up on bringing this topic more detailed in the RATS working group right now. But after this call, I will make sure that I share the composite attester draft link and the RATSD documentation, which was presented in the CCC by team from Oracle. So those two are the good documentation to make the sense what is happening in the standards and how this has been implemented in Project Horizon. So. Yes, Mark.
So I just wanted to say one thing. So from where I'm sitting, we have two remaining huge deployment blockers, like big, unmovable, movable, but like really, really important things that stand between us and broad adoption. One is the fact that right now most technologies require clients and servers to move in lockstep, and that's being addressed by this whole rats on the way relying party thing that we're bringing to ITF this time. It's actually fairly easy in comparison to tackle. But the one relevant to this conversation and the second major deployment blocker is performance, right? So until we can do crypto offload to smart NICs, we cannot deploy this technology at scale, because you simply you do end up doing all your crypto on the CPU, and that's it. Like once you do your performance analysis, your IT will basically say, no, we're not doing it, and they're right. So for that, we need two things. We need the TDISP capable smart NICs actually shipped and installed in data centers, and we need the multi-verifier attester. So I would be a strong supporter of prioritizing this work so that the right changes can be made in all pieces of the stack where it's required, and that once the hardware is available, which again we have a little bit of buffer because the hardware isn't in broad availability yet. But once that part is done, give it another year, right? We need to be ready with software solutions for this. And like I can tell you that a lot of what we're doing is in holding pattern because we're not going to be able to move until performance is unlocked.
Mark, I can
Interesting,
alleviate one of your concerns, which is that AMD is shipping a TDISC capable SmartNIC in the second half of this year.
Well, yes, I'm very excited to hear that. Right. So, but at some point in time, there are hardware refresh cycles and all these things, right? So, it's good that it's available. Like I've been looking forward to this for better part of a decade. Right. So, but I haven't been following what the kernel SIG is doing. Maybe, they need to do some work to make sure that the operating system can, have the right tools, etc. So, yeah.
Mark, I have one question. Is it more relevant to the post-quantum PQC work, or is it you think that even for general crypto with ECDSA, you would have a performance bottleneck?
I do not believe we can do crypto on the CPU, like an at scale network or storage encryption on the CPU and be ready for deployment.
Okay. Interesting.
Like it's like if you look at the numbers, if you're trying to put it on like a network-facing server, I don't know, like say reverse proxy that basically does nothing but moving data around, and you basically say now your SmartNIC cannot do crypto for you, and it has to be done on the CPU. Like the acceptable threshold for performance is low single-digit percentage points. And here we're talking about half, 40% drop. It's nowhere near acceptable.
Okay. I think, yeah, that's a
So
good
basically
observation.
it's so the hardware is getting unlocked. That's awesome. And again, like banks have a lot of patience. We're conservative, slow-moving institutions, right? But and then there is this refresh cycle. So after it's available at some point in time, hundreds of thousands of servers will have to be upgraded to the latest. That's okay. It's gonna another year or two. But eventually, once all of that is in, without software, without verifier support, without kernel support, right? So we need to expedite this work to unlock all of that because it's just part of the process.
Sure. I would be interested in knowing if you have any public documentation of the problems which you just highlighted.
Well, I think Anjuna published performance numbers. You can talk to them.
Okay.
Now, I'm not going to say what they are because for all I know, it may be under NDA, so I simply don't know. But I can tell you it's significant.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so why the laptop simply froze. Sorry. Yeah, okay, these are certain stats which we just keep collect so as to kind of highlight the progress done over the last 12 months. There's a good number of PRs merged, good number of issues closed. Yeah.
Do you have any commercial product that one can license based on Verizon yet?
Oracle is the first one which is kind of commercially deploying use of Verizon. Of course, I don't have much documentation from them, so I cannot directly point them, but they mentioned in our community meetings that they are deploying Verizon-based offering and providing into their partners.
They're the only ones, right?
Now, but I won't say that they are the only ones in future. But yes.
Well, I mean, I'm talking about right now.
Yeah. I can only say
because again, commercial verifier availability is critical for anything that we do on-prem.
Yeah. Of course, there may be others, but I do not have any public documentation,
and it needs
so I
to be
cannot comment on
governable
that.
and performant
Maybe Dan
and highly
has something.
reliable. There's all that stuff that needs like all these properties.
Yeah.
All right. So
Dan, you have your hands up, so maybe I would like to hear.
Yeah, I mean, one of the values of Verizon is that there's libraries, so it's not that somebody needs to take the entirety of Verizon, but they benefit from a lot of the like standards implementations that are there. So I know that the trustee subproject of the confidential containers project in the CNCF, they make use of Verizon libraries, and there's different, I believe, commercial implementations relying on trustee. So
that's I think that is covered in my next slide. Is there are many research projects actually using Project Verizons, but I think I was not sure about the deployment aspect, so I was a bit cautious about answering that. Yeah. So
yeah, it's sometimes very difficult to know when as an open source project what commercial products are using it. So the fact that you know of any is great. I think that really argues in favor of the maturity of Verizon. And I don't know if you'll be talking about your maturity level from the CCC perspective with our formal levels.
Yeah. I think I will touch briefly on that and towards the end of this presentation as well. Yeah. So yeah, thank you. So exactly the point I was about to say on the research side of things. So Samsung Islet project is a heavy user of the project Verizon. Samsung Islet allows deployment of confidential computing technology, ARM CCA, onto the devices. They want to showcase that it is not just for the data centers you need confidential computing, but even on the devices, confidential computing is relevant. So all their documentation is public, their repos are public, and they have an excellent Rust-based ecosystem where they use Verizon for Corims and all other toolings provided by Verizon. And Trust Me is an EU Elastic project which uses online verification where you can push the library for verification as alongside the evidence, and then you can push it in remotely in the cloud, and that's how you can do verification. They have a very innovative concept. They presented Trust Me, which is a EU funded project. They presented it in the CCC meetings, CCC attestation. Yeah, and yeah, Usama, you have your hands up as soon as you heard Trusty. Maybe I would like to hear what is your concern or what is your question on that.
No, I don't have a concern. I'm trying to understand this one. This Trust Me, I think it's not the same as Trustee, which
No,
you
it
are
is not
naming.
Trusty. Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
sure.
it is not Trusty.
Okay, so my question is about Trust Me, which you are showing on the slide. So
Yeah.
how does it establish the trust between the parties? Like, which is the protocol which it uses? Do you know? Is it like pre, intra, or post? What kind of protocol is being used there? And is it also like open source available on the link that you will have in the slides?
Yeah, I think it is to my knowledge, they recently open sourced it like a couple of months back, and they have full documentation, and I believe they have presented already in CCC. Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I have seen in
So
CCC SIG attestation.
just to be clear, so I'm asking very precisely two questions. Number one, is their code available on their repo? Number two, is it pre, intra, or post? Do you know?
Pre, intra, or post, that is for what you are calling about attested TLS or
Yes, whatever attestation protocol they use, do they do attestation before establishing the connection, within the connection, or after the connection?
No, it is not.
Do you?
No, it is not that project. The project is you send in the standard attestation, you just send a tester just sends an evidence to the verifier, right? But here, the attester is not only sending the evidence, but also sending the logics for verification as a separately signed package so that the relying party can consume that, establish some trust because of the signature and stuff, and then verifying based on whatever the logic has been provided to it. So it's a different architecture, but I think I'm not an expert
Whatever
on
that
that.
architecture is, we have. So
So I think
maybe
this is yeah. I can share the slides, or I can share offline with you the GitHub repos and the slide deck for the Trust Me presentation, so that you can directly ask the maintainers of the project what is their trust model.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, and there is a research institute in Japan called Institute of Information and Security. They had presented in FOSDEM about how to use Trust Zone with Opti and Verizon. Opti is a secure world or a Trust Zone operating system which is running on ARM Trust Zone, and how you can do remote attestation of apps running in Opti. And recently, very interesting work we came to know, and it's been presented by Estonian non-profit organization Taichi Institute. They were doing verifiable AI agent attestation with Verizon. So the fellow said how a workload which has an AI agent running can be attested with Verizon. And he presented a brief demo in one of our community meetings. And he's going to present something similar in ITF next week in Vienna. So he has a Verizon presentation aligned. And recently we have some contribution coming from Huawei Research, where an intern working on global platforms EAT profile. Global platform has an EAT profile for attestation evidence, and they are working on some development of each profile with Project Verizon. So that was a useful contribution. They are going to give back the work started raising issues and fixing issues in Verizon. So, and then there was an interesting paper on from Politecnico di Torino from Italy on how Verizon can be useful to the community and how it is helping community to do the standards-based verification. Yeah. This is what I think I already answered to Mark. So Mark, there is a memory production. Solid IGM is also using Verizon tooling to produce corims for on their work. And Oracle, I already mentioned, and NVIDIA heavily uses Cochlear tool from Verizon to produce corims. There are folks here from NVIDIA. I'm just stating that whatever is publicly documented from their website. And of course, as I said earlier, there may be many more where the public documentation may be missing. So, and I think Dan already covered the integration with other OSS project where we have the COCO project, confidential containers project using the attestation library, attestation results library called Rust, EAT-based attestation, Rust EAR library. It has integrated that in its work. And Keylime is another attestation project which does attestation of TPM, root of trust, and they are also using some of the work being done in Verizon. So yes, this is another interesting thing which I wanted to share is that we have been kind of enhancing the outreach of Project Verizon in the community. And so myself and Thomas Fossati, who is not here right now, we went to the Global Platform Fall event in last year, November, and we presented the work done in Verizon, and which was very well received actually. And the work in standards, especially around multi-verifier, was presented in that November fall event. And the global platform listened to that and they kind of absorbed some of the work from Verizon and the work done in standards. They are implementing that profile into an automotive sector for multi-verification. So they produced a paper where global platform would take some of the work we have done and incorporate that in the global platform stream of work. We presented how composite attestation can be done in FOSDEM 2026, and there were a few interesting feedback we received. And in the OCP EMEA summit, which happened in April 2026, we presented how Verizon is helping doing remote attestation for complex data center scenario where you have like smart NICs and other components which are coming together to form an attester, how one would verify such kind of a composite attestation using Verizon. So we got some helpful feedback and some interesting new participants looking towards Verizon because of that. So, okay, now the last slide. I hope I am covering on time. So, yes, what is in the technical roadmap? By the way, this roadmap is more technical than anything. We are going to implement the multi-verifier stuff, which is very much seen as a very relevant topic to discuss and work in implementation for compound attesters, which has multiple components. And we are looking forward to doing some tooling enhancements, how one would collect composite evidence like RADSD, or how is there any tools required by the relying party to fetch composite evidence, or is there any tooling required on any side of RADS architecture components that would assist in easy use of Verizon in the ecosystem. We got some feedbacks and we are working on improving on tooling which is very relevant in this ecosystem. And of course, we are improving CCA scheme updates, which are more relevant to general handling outside of CCA, like event log and stuff. We are looking at how to support that verification of event log in Verizon. So that is something in the roadmap for next 12 months. And now I come to the risks. There has been some recent updates in the core team. So one of the members is changing organization, which doesn't necessarily mean that he would stop contributing because, of course, Verizon is an open source project. And one of our core members has moved organization. And of course, joining a new organization, you can never say with guarantee that he will continue active development into the open source development into the project version, but there is a good chance that he might continue. But at the same time, we have put some mitigation strategies that we would fill the necessary gap in the resourcing. ARM is the primary funding to this project, but CCC always is this project is always a community project. So community members are helping fill the gap anyway, but we will work on mitigating that. And another update is that one senior member is retiring from the core group. So that's the update. Simon, do you want to add anything on that? If I have missed anything or overstated, please correct me before I go on to Usama. Yeah.
That is no, that's pretty accurate. I just no, it's no secret. Thomas Versace is the person who's changed organization, and I'm the one who's retiring.
Okay. Thank you.
Hey, congratulations, Simon.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Congratulations, Simon.
Enjoy it.
I know you've been wanting to do this for a while, Simon, so congrats.
Thank you all.
Who is taking over your stuff?
My team in ARM is going to be run by Paul Howard, who most of you know. And then my technical responsibilities are being dispersed amongst many people. And the reason Yogesh is giving this update is that he's largely inheriting the Verizon project.
Excellent. Well, we wish you well.
Thank you very much.
Yes, Usama. Now back to you.
Yeah, so actually I had the same question because you were using a lot of times one of the senior members, and I know all the members in Verizon. So actually Simon answered most of my question. The only thing I would ask is, where is Thomas moving? Do you know already? Because he's the core leader. He has been the core contributor to this project, and it's a kind of and you mentioned something about mitigation strategy. So I think that's a concern that I have.
Okay, we are kind of looking at right now. This is just very recently happening, so we are evaluating or assessing what it means, what would be the gaps, and then if need be, and if we get the necessary funding, we will hire a few more engineers to support this project. Yeah,
I mean,
that's what
engineers cannot fulfill the job which the leaders or the visionaries or the seniors were doing. So my question, first of all, to you, I asked you two questions just to be more precise. Number one, where is Thomas moving? Number two,
I think that's up to Thomas to reveal that in his own time.
Okay, fair enough.
You know,
So second
he
thing
intends
is,
to be fully engaged with the open source and standards community. So I don't think it'll be a secret, but it's up to him to reveal it when he's ready.
it's
In terms of the core team, to reiterate what Yogesh said, is ARM has a commitment to continue maintaining the core team. There are beyond myself. There are some, very capable people who are going to do more work on Verizon. But in particular, one of the things we've been seeking to do with Verizon is increase the community. And there's some very strong people coming on stream in the community. So we don't want to make it purely an ARM project, though ARM will continue to provide the core team.
Does that help, Usama?
yes, thanks a lot.
Okay, I think that's all from my side. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed the presentation.
Excellent presentation, Yogesh. Really appreciate it. I'll ask a kind of a very basic question, maybe. For customers who are just starting on their confidential computing adoption journey, when should they think about Verizon and when should they not think about Verizon? Ideally in one or a few sentences, if you can summarize that at very high level.
Sure. I mean, if attestation is a prime security feature in their roadmap, they should start thinking about Verizon from the start, just from the word go, because then they will familiarize. They can, because there's a lot of 40. There are more than 20, 35 repositories. So it needs time to learn, get up to the speed. So they should.
Can I ask a quick follow-up to that question, which is My understanding is that they shouldn't care about Verasion at all because Verasion is a set of tools for building an attestation verifier service.
Yeah.
And what the end user cares about is having something that can do the verification for them.
I thought that the question is about if your organization wants to use Verizon for deployment, right?
Not,
Or is
not
it for the end
necessarily.
user? Okay,
I mean,
if for
the
the end
question
user,
is, yeah. The question is, I mean, obviously there are multiple options. You know, we mentioned trustees. There are vendor proprietary options for attestation. So maybe that's a longer conversation to have. But you know, the question is,
okay,
with all the available options on the market, open
okay,
source and not open source, when should or should not a CC customer think about Verizon?
okay. So if it is like a relying party which doesn't which just interested in consuming the results of Verizon, then it doesn't need to worry much because Verizon provides standards-based interfaces. So just follow the standard, and we have the necessary libraries. Just integrate that library and job done. But if you plan to kind of from the attester side, if you plan to generate evidence and you want to take toolings from Verizon to produce a production deployment of Verizon, then you need a bit of knowledge. But the road to getting that knowledge is easy because it's standard based, and there is a healthier community which provides full support in making that possible in a rather short amount of time. Yeah. Does that help?
The thing that I was going to suggest is that we don't spend a lot of effort on the maturity levels for our projects, but we do have different maturity levels. One of the things that these updates serve as is a point in time to take a look and think about whether a project should be moving up in those maturity levels. And listening to what you say about the adoption and the breadth of the community, you might want to think about proposing that Verizon progresses.
Yeah. So, recently we have hired the new project manager, as I said in my presentation. So his primary job is to kind of see whether the practices, the current engagement, the current practices are in line to go to the next level. And he would, of course, evaluate other projects as well to see when they transition, is Verizon at the right level to transition it to the next level? And if after that, his careful assessment, the project manager's careful assessment reveals to that, yes, this is the time, then we are open to kind of move to the next stage. So right now, we feel that a bit more due diligence is required before we move on to the next stage.
Okay, great.
Osama, do you still have a question?
Yes, I have a question, and more than a question, I have like kind of a wrapping comment to guide on the next direction. I believe that's what this presentation was all about, right? So presenting your status update and looking for the directions that you were mentioning as the future ones. So I would like to repeat the concern on multi-verifiers that you showed in one of the slides, like the last one, that's your future direction. And I
Yeah.
want you to be really careful on that. So I would like state my concern very precisely, namely that the design that currently exists is degrading both security and privacy. That's a very poor design choice. Namely, that from a security perspective, if one of your verifiers due to any reason, let's say they break, the whole system is breaking. There is nothing in the system which is preventing that. Number one problem. Number two, from the privacy side, if you see that the draft as it exists, it is exposing the personal identifiable information PII to all the verifiers. That's so you are not really not you actually. So let's say the draft is not actually covering or I'm not seeing the benefit from any side by having multiple verifiers. So this is something that is to be very carefully taken into account before moving to this. And that goes back to my concern on the risks that two main team leaders are moving out, and this is something that bothers me a lot.
Okay, these are two different things. I can explain and detail a lot, but again, it's not that I'm not capable of answering, but I feel that your concerns I can answer very well, but I'm not sure whether I have the liberty to answer it right now because of the agenda of this was not to discuss these things in detail. Yeah, Mark.
I mean, you were asking for feedback, right? So the directions next, or
Okay, I heard your feedback, but your question about the technical thing is not, we cannot elaborately explain here. I have a solution which I will explain you. I can drop an email, I can write you on Slack, but I don't think this is the right forum to discuss that. In terms of your resourcing constraints, resourcing thing about two leaders leaving, yes, we have scoped it, and I think Simon has adequately answered that how we are going to mitigate that. So I don't think it has a concern. Yeah.
Thank you, Yogesh.
Yeah. Mark.
Mark?
Oh, I was going to speak to that specifically. So, Verifier is a going to be a highly trusted service within an enterprise, just like a certificate authority, just like a uh, key management service. So, yes, it needs to be engineered for top security, but at the same time, if you're going to deploy a verifier, well, you're going to verify it to make sure that it's solid, and then you just accept the risk, because much like you do CA, there's nothing different. It's yes, highly sensitive. No, not different from any other highly sensitive service. So as far as privacy, I think we have two domains for privacy. I think we have consumer, and I think we have enterprise. Within enterprise, privacy, in some sense, is an anti-goal, because you actually want to know everything about who's doing what. So if you take a look, for instance, SGX had the EPID scheme, which was privacy preserving, group signatures, and so forth. It never took off. Right? Because again, the primary concern for remote attestation is not consumer, it's enterprise. So again, you need to take, you can be highly religious, like fundamentalist religious over security requirements, and then it gets in the way of what the customer actually wants. So let's make sure that we design for the requirements that the customers actually have, not the security purist type of scenario.
Alex?
Yeah, I just want to say, Usama, I read your poster and I tried my hardest to understand it, and I understood, I think, maybe two-thirds of it. I wonder if you'd be willing to do a tech talk, for us, and you present your poster, and then your ideas about maybe how to overcome some of the limitations that are in the standards that you're proposing, so that we, can better understand your concerns and see some alternative architectures that overcome your concerns. Just, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I know there's a
I'd
lot of
like
open schedule. I mean, there's a lot of open slots on the schedule. I'd
I would
encourage you to sign up for one.
I
that
would
that would be so if you let me speak first to that. So if you actually see the emails, I dropped in tag 2 times an email that, hey, I have a topic that I have a concern that I want to talk to you, and I really want to raise this concern that nobody actually took it off. And I would love to actually present and talk to you people to see that there is a problem. There is a proposed solution for that, which can somehow mitigate the kind of damage that the current solutions are doing. But my concern remains that actually, like, what really stops this from happening? Like, I came it over to tech. You can see the email, and I'm still waiting for the response. That
It
that
was
was exactly that was exactly saying that, hey, this is a problem, and I need to talk to you guys about this.
cool. I've got the PM mail open, and I will ask that they work with you to pick a time. I don't think there was any desire to exclude anybody. I think it's probably just an email got lost. So I'll work on that.
Perfect, thanks.
I'd like to echo the call for our presentation on this. We are also hitting at AMD some limitations in the core of the RATS spec. And we are struggling to try to implement this internally. And so far, we have not been successful. We've come up on a couple of things that are technical, but then there's one that is fairly deeply philosophical, which is, what is Attestation trying to do? And I've sort of put this into two buckets. Is it trying to present transparency about the supply chain to the tenant? Or is it trying to shift liability from the host to the hardware manufacturer? Right? Those are two goals. Both of those may be legitimate goals, but it seems to me that the RAT specs are very much drafted in the latter category and not the former category.
So,
And
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, so the core of this is the co-RIM spec, where the intent in the co-RIM spec is that a hardware vendor is going to basically advertise the firmware that it thinks should be run.
Correct.
And there is a fundamental distinction there between what I'll call a fact and an opinion, right? The difference between a fact, which is what hardware or what firmware AMD has released, and an opinion, which is what firmware from AMD you should run. The difference between those is a policy, and
Yes.
liability is attached to a policy, right? And
Yeah.
so if co-RIM is going to express an opinion about which firmware AMD believes you should run, then fundamentally attestation is about shifting liability from the host to the hardware manufacturer. On the other hand, if we want a system that is about revealing the transparency of the hardware, firmware, and software supply chain to the tenant, which is, I think, the much stronger model, and is the one AMD would be much more interested in pursuing,
Yeah.
then essentially what that design for that looks like is not the RATS model at all.
Yeah.
And
So,
yeah, it's one of those things where, like, I don't want to show up and be the guy that's like arguing against a ton of people who have done really great work. But also I see these problems as far more foundational
okay, I
than
think you are
can be
mixing two.
patched.
I
But
think you are.
help me. Thank you.
Yeah, I think you're mixing two different trust models together, and that's where the confusion is. The Corim provides you trusted endorsements that help verify or match what is reported in the evidence, so that I can see that the firmware digest reported from an attester matches what the vendor says. Yup, this is what exactly my firmware binary was. And it can say, vendor can say, you accept these three possible digests, because I may have three revisions, 1, 2, 3. If you get anything 1 or 2 or 3, then you accept it as a valid firmware digest running on that computing platform. That's one thing. The second thing, you talked about how the firmware was built, what practices were followed, does it have an SBOM, how the supply chain for that firmware was built.
So
That is precisely.
that's not what I mean by supply chain. Okay,
Yeah.
don't reduce supply chain down to the software supply chain SBOM problem.
No,
That
no,
is
but
it.
anything to do with the supply chain, whether it is coming from the hardware or from the software of how stuff is built, that is KIT's responsibility in ITF to deal with.
But the one of the fundamental problems here is that AMD does not ship one firmware. AMD ships
Yeah,
5 separate firmwares,
that's
which can
fine.
be used in any combination,
Yeah,
and we don't want to assert these are the ones you think you should use. We want to assert these are the ones that we have that are officially ours,
yeah.
and these are the security bulletins that are related to them. And that's
Okay.
all we want to assert.
That's fine. You can assert that as part of the firmware digest as reference values in Corim, and you can attach associated endorsements to that. So I think I will let others answer that as well, but I have clear answers to this. If you are concerned about how this works, I'm happy to go on and on. But yeah, Fritz
Yeah.
and then Simon. Yeah.
So I mostly want to bring this back to just a discussion about the technical talks, right? In terms of, I think this would be a very interesting discussion to have, because it's partially a philosophical discussion of what is attestation, where do we want to apply attestation, who is attesting, what do you do? What I can only speak from my perspective. What I have been hesitant to kind of schedule as technical talk in the past has been detailed discussions on attestation topics, because we have the attestation week for that, right? But I think this sort of thing is like a high-level philosophical discussion that impacts cross CC, and that would be great discussion to have, I believe. Nathaniel, we don't have to do this in terms of like a tech talk, right? It's, I think, always fine to bring like, I don't know, one slide or like a quick 2-minute paint drawing of these are the different deployment scenarios I see, and then we can have, I think it's worthwhile to have a discussion. I'm not sure if we have the time for this now. I don't want to like take over Rene's job or something, but even if we are get stopped here, I think it would be cool to just get us half an hour, you know,
Yeah,
in the future calls, because these sort of things are useful, I think, even if the result is that Yogesh throws the RATS rule book at us and says it's all covered. Because I agree, it's not always clear, and just
Sure.
because there is some niche feel for it doesn't mean that it's not a valid concern that you have.
Yeah, no, this is a very solid plan for how we solve this. Here's what I propose. I propose that at the minimum, Yogesh and I and maybe Fritz together plan a time when we're going to have this as a like long form conversation in the observation of the TAC, right? It's not like a presentation, it's not ideology, it's these are the problems we're having. How do we solve those problems? Is this something we can do with minimal design changes, etc.? I think that's the right way to do that. Others agree?
Absolutely.
Yes.
I agree with what Dan said in the email. Just write it out, some thoughts on the email list, and I think then we can start having discussion here. I wouldn't, like, on purpose, I wouldn't bring it out too big from the start. I would come with a brainstorm style drawing or some email, quick back and forth, and then come here to have a chat. And then if this wasn't productive or if we need more, let's go from there. But
Let's do it
we
this
did this
way.
too often in the past that we planned something and then didn't follow up on it. So let's maybe just do it quickly on one of the next calls at some point.
Let's do it this way. I will put together a diagram of how I think it should work in my head and who is making what assertions where in the chain. I will deliberately not follow the RATS terminology. And then the real question is, how can we map this into the RATS terminology and the formats that we have? And that structure allows us to tease out those issues. Does that make sense?
Sure. Either way is fine. Yeah.
Okay.
It makes sense to
Makes
me.
sense.
And I also want to add to that once we have too many attestation discussions, I would defer to the attestation thing. But let's have the initial thing here and then see if
Yep.
it's like wide enough for this group to
Okay, I'll take the action item to get us on the schedule.
Cool.
Yeah.
This is great.
Simon had his hands up as well. He put it down. Maybe Simon, do you want to say
I
something?
think we covered most of it. All I was going to say is there is some overlap with discussions in OCP towards the same aim. But that could be brought into the conversation.
Yeah.
Well, it's great. We need to wrap this up as we're almost running out of time. But Nathaniel, thank you for bringing this up. Because if one of the major vendors, part of the ecosystem, is having questions, then there's definitely something we need to provide clarity and answers. Yeah.
Sure.
Osama, anything
Yeah, very
to add
quickly, I
quickly?
really want, sure, very quickly, I want to add a plus one to Nathaniel. So I think what he's saying is a real problem, and we really, as a community, need to look into it, not specifically in the attestation sake, like as Fritz said, at a high level, broader level. And I really support like the plan that he charted out, that he will send out a picture and then we map it over to rats and get together to see really that is rats really going in a direction that is really implementable, or is we really like this is not the Nathaniel is not the only person, I can assure you, who is saying that this rats world is really fantasy world. So there are so many people other than him who are really saying that, hey, you people, you rats people are really living in the fantasy world, and how does this map over to our specific scenario and the real world scenario? So I really want to have this kind of discussion and to proceed it forward. Thanks a lot, Nathaniel.
Perfect. And Mark also, I think, highlighted the importance of the real world. Sometimes we get a little bit too complex or too security and privacy perfect, while the real world needs usability and
Well, ultimately, it needs to be deployable,
yeah,
and it needs to be like, and above all, it needs to be governable.
Yeah. And Usama, to your point on multi-verifier brick security and all that, that is all is properly answered and we have taken care of that. Just that you always keep saying that it is non-fixable problems. I don't think even the privacy is a fixable problem. And of course, multi-verifier doesn't increase the privacy. In fact, it improves the privacy aspect. I can explain that. Yeah.
I have
right.
actually refuted your statement multiple times, and I won't repeat it here.
Oh, cool. That's fantastic discussion. Amazing. Okay, let's move on. The other work in progress. We finished with blueprint C, and we have the blueprints A and B in the works. Let me put links to those in the chat for ease of access. This is blueprint B, and this is blueprint A. And Dan, did we want to jump into blueprint B maybe? I know you had some comments there. We encourage, of course, everybody who is attending and beyond to collaborate and add your reviews and comments and suggestions.
Yeah, so we don't have Simon on the call, but I would like to maybe make a little bit of progress here. So these two documents maybe overlap more than would be ideal, the scopes of them. But I think in both of them, we're a bit repetitive with some of the other documentation we have on how do you form an attestation, what are measurements about, that sort of thing. And what I would more like to help the community with, help potential adopters with, is understanding how they use attestation in these things. So we have things like eats and ears, and I don't know that those are really reflected in there. And there's some best practices about, particularly in the case of the second one, about key release, how you release the key. We've got background check and the passport model. How doing that? I don't think those are language, and for people who read rat stuff a lot, and we're all very comfortable with those two metaphors. I don't necessarily want to repeat what's in existing rats documents there, but at least get to what real world implementations do. and make clear whether like the key servers themselves need to understand attestation, or they can simply work with a token that comes from an attestation server separately. Many of the companies here have implemented these things, and so far only Simon has principally provided thoughts into those documents. So it would be great for the other companies who have implemented these things to put those patterns into the documents.
Okay. Do we want to take some time to look at it? I mean, we only have about 15 minutes left. We can encourage folks, obviously, to keep reviewing and contributing to these documents because they've been dragging a little bit longer than we originally expected.
Right. Yeah, I guess rather than going over them live, since we're a little bit short on time, just the links Renee already helpfully dropped into chat there. So please kind of queue those up in your browser tabs and set aside some time to provide information for those.
Great. Yeah, I think that makes sense.
And you started off with this at the beginning already, Renee, but just for everybody's benefit, again, there is now a GitHub issue on our governance repo. I would like the other TAC voting members to go take a look at that. It's got the next document that we want to work on, which is tying confidential computing with agentic AI. And that is very topical and very important for us to be able to communicate to the broader ecosystem about how they can further secure their agentic systems.
Correct. Yeah, because that's obviously all the rage these days is agentic AI, and currently we lack any of the guidance, frankly, from CCC on what is the applicability of confidential computing for this brave new world. Obviously, there's identity, there's integrity, there's sandboxing already that's typically used in agentic harnesses, and yeah, so feel free to collaborate on that.
Yeah, we probably missed talking about that during the summit recap, but that was a huge theme, was agentic systems and the use with confidential computing. So I also want each of you to have something worthwhile that you can point back to your management. How did you spend your time usefully here? And documents like this that are where people are looking to invest, that's the kind of thing where we're potentially providing real utility to your own companies and to the rest of the ecosystem. So I hope that's relevant. If that's not relevant, go ahead and comment that in the issue. If it is relevant, let's get some outline material into that.
Great. Okay. Anything on the TAC white paper?
Alec already mentioned that, I think, somewhat over chat and maybe verbally. Do we still have Alec?
I'll say it again. I've got start on the document. I haven't made as much progress as I would have liked, but I've got a good start. So those of you who want to be given the initial draft version of the doc to add your review comments, please make that known, and I'll post my email to the chat once more at the bottom here.
Do you want to post the link as well?
Well, that's what I don't want to do is have to add a whole bunch of folks to this link, because this is just in a private directory. So what I want to do is figure out if there's a CCC Google Docs directory. I don't know. Do you know, Dan? Is there one, or should I just share it out of my own Google Docs space?
No, this is what I was saying, that Michelle or Ben should be able to create something in the CCC space that is world accessible.
Cool. So it would be awesome if Michelle, if you could create like a blank doc, send me the link, make it so that uh, one person is the owner and others are reviewers, so that we can kind of keep tabs of, who wants to add what and do it in a moderated format instead of free for all. And I will copy paste all of my stuff into the doc that you provide, and or maybe I'll just copy my doc into a directory that you provide and then share it out of that. Does that work?
Yeah, this is for the TAC white paper.
Exactly.
Yep, I can do that.
Awesome. Thank you, Michelle.
Great. Okay, and yeah, Sama, you had the topic.
Yeah, thanks. Basically, I want to do an appeal for the problem which is happening in the SIG against the SIG chairs themselves. And the problem itself is that we have an accepted issue, and the chairs are not creating a repo for that specific issue. And I want to understand what specific the problem is, because I have requested it like 4 times, and the chairs are presenting excuses which are beyond my understanding, because it's an accepted project. We have delivered part of the formal analysis already. I was one of the proponents of that project. There is a recording available which and all procedure was followed for that specific project. And I still don't understand what the problem is in the creation of that repo. And then the chairs asked me that, hey, you are putting your artifacts in a repo which is for another project, and I really want to solve this problem soon, because the camera ready deadline for our paper is already gone. So we have to make a special request to the editors for this to be moved. And I really want to solve this problem.
Is that a question for SIG? I don't know if we can answer it here, Dan.
So that's an appeal to the TAC chair and TAC, actually. That's what I'm making. It's not a question for SIG. I mean, the SIG chairs themselves have put out somehow an unofficial decision kind of on the Slack. I don't know why they're not putting it on the list, somehow due to some reason. But anyway, my concern is that I am putting it as an appeal to the TAC chair. That's my question. I think I also see the vice chair was here, but probably not. But anyway, at least Dan is here, so I'm putting it as an appeal. I want to know what the problem is in the creation of a repo for a project which is SIG approved and already existing, and has been part of the formal analysis, was already delivered in a separate repo from the POC. And the concern was that I don't want to bother POC people which are creating the proof of concept to say, hey, this is the new update now, please approve my PR, and please approve my PR. It's bothering for them, it's bothering for me to keep
Okay,
waiting
let's
for them.
get Dan a chance to
Usama,
Sure.
Usama, I'm not one of the SIG chairs, but the response that they said, that they wrote, states that they reject the premise that the new data you want to put online belongs to an accepted project. Are you refuting that statement, or what specifically are you refuting? If you
Yes,
want to refute something or want to bring in something, you need to be very specific about what specific item are you coming in with refuting.
Sure, I'm refuting their claim that it does not belong to that project. It does belong to that POC project, and you can see me as a proponent of that specific project. And there is a meeting by the SIG where the scope was explicitly elaborated over, and this work was in scope. That's my claim. Does it make sense?
So from my perspective, you're trying to publish a paper and putting it under the CCC umbrella. That's not what the CCC is about. If you want to publish a paper, put it in your personal repository.
That's not correct. I mean, I'm saying that there was a SIG project which was approved. There was an official SIG meeting in which the scope was expanded and the work was done, and that work is now complete. The paper is a separate thing which is now related, because we have to put a link to that in the paper. But don't put it out like that, hey, there is a paper and I want to put my artifacts into this. There is a dependency that we didn't want to put out the code before the paper was accepted, and that's pretty much it. It was a part of the SIG project. I've put the recording out there which shows the expansion of the project scope, and I really want to understand what the concern is in the creation of a new repo for an accepted project, which was scope was clearly in the SIG meeting. It was decided to be more expanded than what's written in the scope itself.
My understanding is that the scope of the project was for a draft which has been abandoned and not worked on for about 2 years, and so that project was intended to have been closed.
So there was no such discussion in the SIG about this. So, I mean, I put out a meeting recording, which is clearly expanding the scope even over to the post-handshake draft. And I don't understand how the project itself can be like given that context. So you're talking about 2 years meeting before, and I'm talking to you or kind of presenting you an evidence of the meeting, which is just like I think not more than 6 months or something. I have to check the date exactly, but that's more recent, and that happened already in the SIG meeting. So I don't understand why you are giving a reference of the draft itself to be outdated or whatever. The scope was changed. The scope was elaborated over to the whole domain that, okay, so we are, whatever that is going to be. So at least that part was a part of the SIG project itself. So are you denying that the work I have done is not part of that project? Is it what you are saying?
Saying that my understanding is that the scope of the project had concluded and that this is additional scope. I saw that you linked to a 1-hour meeting and I tried to queue through that, but I did not have time to listen to the entirety of a 1-hour meeting. So if you could find a relevant time code in that, that would help me understand it better.
Right. I want to add one specific point, which is to say that you are repeating the fact that the project was closed and so on. There is a process for the project to be closed, which is to say it is completed or whatever that is. So there is a process for that, and that never happened. So please don't say that the project was closed and things like that. That's really a wrong thing to say. So if you see the SIG page, when the project completes, there is a SIG, like kind of a consensus kind of a thing. And if you remember, I completed a project. I had a meeting. I said, okay, so, and sent out on the list that, hey, this is the work we have done. Is there something more to be done? We want to have a consensus and so on. So that was a full process which was followed for this project, which you are trying to pretend that, hey, this has actually closed. That's not right. So it never happened in the SIG that, hey, this project is now going to be closed because the draft is closed or whatever that thing. That's an active project of, and formal analysis itself is a part of that project. I mean, even if the POC is not proceeding or whatever, the formal analysis, I'm reading that part. How can it be completed when I have not declared it as complete? So it never, that part has never happened at all. I don't understand why you are bringing in the argument that it has completed.
I think I don't think we're going to solve this right now in the remaining 3 minutes. I think the concern was raised, and there needs to be some follow up here. But thanks, Osama. Okay. Next, thanks everybody for participation. Great discussions here today. Next meeting will be in 2 weeks from now, and will be chaired by Wu from Huawei. And we have a number of updates and topics and reviews there already, and feel free to add additional agenda items in that meeting as well. So anything else? I think we can close.
Thanks, everyone.
This meeting. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Renee, for chairing.
Ciao.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.